One of the two gifts that God has given to each and every one of us is the gift of foresight and the gift of hindsight. When we say foresight, you can already foresee, as it were, represent to yourself in your imagination what will happen in the past, what will happen in the future. That's why the philosopher Heidegger once said, it's like throwing yourself ahead of yourself. That is what you call the gift of foresight. You can imagine what you want to become in the future. For example, if you are a seminarian and you never imagine yourself being a priest someday, then maybe you question whether it's really the vocation that you want to embrace for the rest of your life. If you've always been imagining to become a doctor or an engineer, then you have to be true to yourself. The gift of foresight. The gift of foresight gives us the capacity or the initiative to set our goal. If you want to pass the licensure exam, then you have to put in the hours studying. If you want to pass with a good grade in your studies, you have to spend more time studying rather than playing, watching TV, or playing with your gadgets. So more or less, you have already an inkling what will happen in the future because of the gift of foresight. You can foretell what will happen in the future precisely because of what you are doing right now. The gift of hindsight means the capacity to reflect, that we can look back and say to ourselves, I should have done better. You can do better because you have failed what was required in order to be successful. If you got a very low grade, then you can study harder. If you have offended somebody, then you make reparation by saying you are sorry. So when you're, for example, lying in bed, you have the capacity to reflect like a movie. You can imagine what happened in the day, and then you can review what you have done as something good and what you have done as something bad, or what you can improve on. What I'm trying to drive at is that even in our spiritual life, we also should have the gift of foresight and hindsight. And that's why Jesus in the parable today praised the servant who has been entrusted to take care of his master's property. He knew that he will be rewarded if he would be faithful to his master. Whereas a servant who has been entrusted with much and says to himself, my master is delayed in coming, and begins to beat the men servants and the maid servants to eat and drink and get drunk, then that servant's master will come on an unexpected day at an unexpected hour and will punish the servant severely. What Jesus is pointing out goes beyond our practical lives, our careers, our vocation, our relationships. What Jesus is trying to tell us is that there is more to life than food, clothing, and shelter. When we have plans, when we make preparations in order to avoid the coronavirus by using masks, face masks, face shield, wash our hands, social distancing, because we fear, we are afraid that we might get infected. We are afraid ultimately to die. But Jesus said, fear that which can kill not only the body, but also the spirit. So our plan, from the point of view of Jesus, should go beyond our earthly life. We should ask ourselves, do I have a plan for eternal life? Do I go beyond my physical life, this temporal life? And that is the point of the gospel today. That's why Jesus Christ said, store up treasures in heaven, where moth will not destroy, where robbers will not break in and steal, will rust will not corrode. Seek first the kingdom of heaven, and everything else will be given besides. And so let us use our gift of foresight, because what will happen in the future is determined by what we do now. And the gift of hindsight, in the sense that we can review our lives and make a firm resolution to do better next time. And so this opportunity to reflect, to pray, and look at things that are essential and important in our lives, we could do that in this time of pandemic, because we have more time to pray, to reflect, and more time to be with our loved ones. So Jesus, in the gospel, asks us, do you have an eternal plan? Does your plan go beyond this finite temporal life? Do you ever consider eternal life? Do you ever consider your salvation? Jesus is offering us a simple but tested formula, that if you do this, then you have a plan for eternal life. And that is, your life should be at the service of others. Your life should not only revolve around yourself, your I, me, mine world, but a life that is given to others, a life of service to others. Ultimately, we shall be measured by how much we have served and how much we have loved. Towards the end of the gospel, Jesus said, much will be required of the person entrusted with much, and still more will be demanded of the person entrusted with more. Jesus has entrusted to us the capacity to love. Jesus has entrusted to us the capacity to serve. God has given us the gift of foresight and hindsight, and so we should use this in our plan for eternal life.